Peace, peace, peace. All right, we're going to try this again. We renamed it The Risen Christ, the Mother Goddess Principle, and the Awakened Mind. All right, so let's get into that topic. Got a few things that we want to share. So hopefully it pops off. There it is. Word. All right, so let's get into today's topic here. All right, when we talking about the risen Christ, we're talking about consciousness, Christ consciousness, also referred to in the ancient Kemetic teachings, Temerian teachings, as Kimware, melanin. Melanin gives you the ability in order to obtain Christhood, Heruhood, what is called Kodesh, the mummified body of Osar. Osar is the Lord of the perfect black. And of course, we have the Mother Goddess principle. That is the Kundalini. And as the Kundalini goes up, raises up, ascends up Israel to ascend to God, the Kundalini moves through the chakra system. The word chakra is a Vedic word in which that means wheel of light, thought, color, and sound. The wheels of light, vortexes, these endocrine glands also correlate to the planets in the solar system. Elijah Muhammad said there's 7 planets that have life. He's referring to also the 7 chakras, known as the Shinkaras, known as the Aritus within the ancient Kemetic teachings. All right. We know that melanin is part of the triple stage darkness. You have dark matter, black energy, melanin, triple stage darkness. Melanin, the chemical key to black greatness, the harmful effects of toxic drugs on melanin centers within the black human. This is by Carol Barnes. He writes, melanin gives humans the ability to feel because it is the absorber of all frequencies of energy. Now, Dr. Francis Quest Welsen writes, since melanin is the superb or superior absorber of all energy, it is essential to establish this understanding of God in all energy. The fact that the albinos, whites, lack melanin may also help to explain why, in the view of many non-white peoples, they, whites, lack spirituality and the capacity to tune in and thereby establish harmony and justice. All right, I won't get in depth with this right now at this time, but we definitely wanted to show that the science of melanin is very important. Here are some books that you can even get for your children. The Coloring Book of Melanin Greatness by Nigel Robinson. Melanin and Me by Beverly Crispo. The Melanin in Me by Demetria Eltiania. You have Dark Wonders, Learning About Melanin by Stephanie Kashi. You have Living the Melanin Diet by Dana E. Meningol. You have The Science of Melanin, Dispelling the Myths by my good friend Timothy Owen Moore, PhD. You have his other book, Dark Matters, Dark Secrets by Dr. Tim Owen Moore. Also, he helped write, along with Edward Bruce Bynum, PhD, Ann C. Brown, PhD, and Richard King, MD, before he passed, alayhi salam upon him, Why Darkness Matters, The Power of Melanin in the Brain. You also have, by Dr. Layla Africa, Melanin, What Makes Black People Black, How to Protect and Nurture It, Difference Between Black and White People, How It Causes Emotional Behavior and Thought, How It Is Being Destroyed. You have African Origin of Biological Psychiatry by Dr. Richard King. His other book, Melanin, A Key to Freedom by Dr. Richard King, MD. Now, the first book that I've read from Dr. Richard King was back around 1991. All right, 91. Somewhere around that time, it was his book called The Black Dot, which was hundreds of pages. I would say it was about maybe 600 to 700 pages. All right. That was the unofficial report in which that I see here that these two books were drafted from. The African Origin of Biological Psychiatry and Melanin, A Key to Freedom. Now, you also will want to get Dark Light Consciousness, Melanin, Serpent Power, and the Luminous Matrix of Reality by Edward Bruce Bynum, PhD. Another good brother. All right. Now, reason why we're talking about melanin is because the serpent race are the Kushites who call themselves Aphias or Ethiopians, meaning the nation of the serpents, from the Greek word ethos, for nation, peoples, and office as Ethiophis, and evolved to Ethiopian. The nation of the offices was the nation of moderate Somalia and Ethiopia, and was called Aphir by the Greeks. Aphis was snake in Greek, and the serpent god they worshipped. So the Greeks worshipped Aphis, who were the Ethiopians, the snake people, serpent people, the masters of Kundalini. All right, the masters of the Kundalini, as you see here to the left, by vocalizing particular sounds of relaxation, concentration, and prayer, the chakras are nurtured. Yet to fully develop them, one needs to work with the fire of the spinal column, known as Kundalini or the Pentecostal fire. This is what makes the Pentecostal holiness foam at the mouth, cast themselves on the ground, and flap around like fish out of water. What makes them allegedly speaks in tongues. To learn more, read The Perfect Matrimony by Samuel Ayun Weir. He states, the 7 most important glands of the human organism constitutes the 7 laboratories controlled by the law of the triangle. Each of these glands have an exponent in a chakra of the organism. Each one of the seven chakras is found located in intimate correlation with the seven churches of the spinal medulla. The seven churches of the dorsal spine controls the seven chakras of the grand sympathetic nervous system. And the seven churches became intensely active with the ascent of the Kundalini along the medulla canal. The Kundalini dwells in the electrons. The Kundalini dwells in the electrons. Hence the reason why the Kundalini is the mother goddess principle, and God is El, which is short for electrons. The sages meditate on it, devotees adore it, and in home where the perfect matrimony reigns, it is the work with practicality. The perfect matrimony. The seven churches are within the microcosm and within the macrocosm. The seven churches of the spinal medulla are united to the seven chakras or plexus of the grand sympathetic nervous system by means of very fine nerves. The seven churches are similar to the lotus flower, which are suspended from the famous Nadi Shitra. The canal of the Sushumna is within the medulla canal. The canal of the Nadi Shitra is within the canal of the Sushumna. The seven beautiful and divine churches are suspended from this precious medulla canal, the Aquarian message. Right? So the cosmological origin of myth and symbols from the Dogon ancient Egyptians to India, Tibet, and China. This is by Lord Straden. All right, so we're talking about the seven chakras. Well, the Dogons refer to them as the seven stages of Popilu, right? And if you count each symbol is seven. Each thread is said to pass through a series of seven vibrations inside a tiny egg, which the Dogon call the Popilu, which we take as a likely counterpart to the tiny, wrapped up bundle of the seven dimensions in string theory or torsion theory called the Calabi Yo space. It is this component of matter that the Dogon priests call the egg of the world and describe as a pivotal component of matter to be found in the world just below ours. The vibrations inside this egg are conceived of the seven rays of the star of increasing length and represented by yet another Dogon drawing. The figures of this drawing are read from right to left, like the Egyptian glyphs, as they are arranged in some inscriptions or like the letters of the traditional Hebrew text. Right, so we're talking about the seven chakras, they're vortexes. And the word vortex means a massive swirling fluid of air, especially a whirlpool, a whirlwind. All right, synonyms is whirlwind, cyclone, whirlpool, gyre, maelstrom, eddy, swirl, spiral, black hole. Right, now, in South Africa, they refer to Kundalini. The ancient Egyptians called it Shekom or Sekhmet, another name for Mayat. Mayat would be the passive, while basically Sekhmet would be the active. All right. In South Africa, the Kundalini is called Umbulini. A primal force used by the Zulu shaman to connect their minds with deities in the spirit realm, described as something like a hot coiled snake bursting through the top of your head. Freedom Mutua. It is a state achieved through sitting still, deep breathing, elimination of thoughts, and drawing up the power of the soul. Similar archetype Kundalini can be found in Sanskrit as the Eastern spiritual traditions. Right? In ancient Egypt, also called the Uraeus, a serpent crown. All right, shown on the Egyptians and Nubian royalty, also known as the Naga or the Nagus. Amongst many indigenous African cultures, the Uraeus is a symbol of wisdom, power, and perfection. All right. Now, to awaken the mind, the Kundalini hits and strikes the pineal gland, which helps with the production and the releasing of DMT, the spirit molecule. All right, it's called dimethyltryptamine. All right, get this book, Rich Stratum, MD. All right, in the book, it says the pineal gland in rats has recently been confirmed to secrete endogenous dimethyltryptamine, or DMT, a very powerful psychoactive substance that exists in our brains, as well as in many mammals and many plant species. The pineal gland is directly affected by sunlight and the magnetic fields trapped by the light, and through the pineal gland, the metabolism of the body is regulated. All right, so this is David Wilcock, and he says something very important here. He also speaking about DMT. Now, of course, DMT is something in which that we've been knowing about and been talking about now for over 20 years. All right. The next stage of translation, which only takes place when DMT is present, involve the DMT molecular suspension within and around the brain stem, which, as David Wilcock has revealed, exhibits luminous properties, meaning that the DMT molecule crystals create light and perhaps only one photon physically disturbed. Right? Thus, the physical plane point source disturbance created by the brain and scalar wave interpolation can cause DMT micro crystals in suspension to create light photon, which then simulate the photoreceptors, a receptive pineal pinealocytes in the pineal gland. The pinealocytes convert these photon emissions from the DMT crystals into neural signals that are then sent via the pineal, spinal, optic nerve pathways to the visual cortex via the optic nerve. Theoretically, the brain and calcite crystals are the translation mediums for the scalar-based holographic information that is developed into a neutral message that the visual cortex can then interpolate. Theoretically, that's what it is. This is a possible visual pathway that allows us to view the parallel holographic reality data is immersed in. It is important to remember that the single photon emissions are extremely weak. All right, as bright as a candle of 15 miles daily. Not only is the pineal gland located in the center of the brain for maximum protection and proximity of the thymus gland, it also the darkest location in the body. Right? Pineal gland is the most primitive. Right? The pineal gland in most primitive species are located near the surface of the skull in order to perceive external light. Right? The human pineal gland is so placed in the darkest location in order to present meso eternal light signals. The pineal gland has a dual role: ambience, light information sent from the eyes via the optic nerve informs the pineal gland as to where it should produce melatonin and light information along the actonia brain sands. The DMT source provides holographic cellular DMT source provides holographic cellular wave imagery to be sent to the optic nerves and the visual cortex. So, how do photons and electrons interact? Energy from photon and light particles can be absorbed or released by electrons. Right? The energy can free the electron to move around, and the electron can release the energy as another photon. Photon energy is light energy, and it permeates the earth in waves. Photon energy also the electron to jump to a higher orbital level. There are 7 energy level states of the electron. Right? As it says, these are the 7 energy states of the electron. Right? The violet end of the spectrum is the highest energy state of the electron in terms of visible spectrum. This higher color will raise the atomic structure of our physical body by causing all of the electrons in the body to jump. All right, quantum leap, metaphysics, to go beyond. At once break the 7 seals or 7 shells of the electron. Electrons are melanated skin interacting with photonic energy. All right. So electrons on melanated skin interacts with photonic energy. It has the power to extend human life because it realigns the human body into. Okay. So, I mean, think about that. It has the power to extend human life. So electrons on melanated skin, all right, has the ability to extend human life. Now, what excites the electrons is photonic energy. As we basically got clear understanding of that, photons and electrons interaction. When an electron absorbs a photon, the energy can free the electron to move around, and the electron can release the energy of as another photon. So how do you receive photonic energy? By merely getting your ass out into the sun 1 to 3 hours a day, All right. Taking in at least 60 IUs of vitamin D3. All right, so let's look at that for a second. It has the power to extend human life because it realigns the human body into a light body. Ooh. Qigong, Tai Chi helps with that because as you get out into the sun, you're able to absorb the energy through via your melanin, exciting the electrons in your skin with that photonic energy as it comes in, causing you to extend your life and develop the light body. Photon energy vibrates at a very high frequency and confers the power of instant manifestation of thought. So the more astral light that you can absorb, etheric light or energy that you can absorb, the quicker the manifestation of your thoughts. That's just what it is. So spiritual, mental, astral, unknown, etheric, 2 trillion vibrations per second X-rays, 500 billion vibrations per second light color, 200 billion vibrations per second heat, 1,000 million vibrations per second electricity, 16 to 3,276, 32,768 vibrations per second sound, right? And then solid. So man's response to vibrations. No coincidence, we look at a melanin molecule here, and it says God is all energy, cosmic energy. Melanin man, all energy absorbing man. Next says need of cosmic energy or use of cosmic energy. So melanin, you have to find ways of using melanin, the cosmic energy. You have to find ways of doing that. Otherwise, you're slipping, right? And the more energy you can take from external source, the more the energy is built up within your 3 areas of your dantian. You have your lower dantian, which is below the navel. So you have your mid dantian, which is located heart chakra, specifically for the back of the heart, your back. Then you have your higher or third eye chakra called dantian, also called the upper room, in which that you can store energy. Now, if you want to extend your life, then you would store the energy in your lower dantian. If you want love, it would be stored at the heart. If you want a high IQ, photographic memory, then it would be stored at your third eye area, your dantian. All right, there's another way in order to gain these powers, just like Superman, the sun. For ordinary humans, staring at the sun will cause blindness. But since the sun's yellow rays give me my vision powers, this should be equivalent of an eye drop. of eye drops. All right. So what happened is that let's find the equivalent to that. Well, we know that NASA confirmed that superhuman abilities were gained through sun gazing. All right. The ancient Egyptians, the Olmec, Mayans, Aztecs, Toltecs, Incas, Tibetans, Indian yoga report not only healing benefits to common illnesses, but obtaining superhuman abilities such as advanced telepathy, going without food, going completely without the need for food, sun gazing, which we call sun eating, right? Also called the HRM phenomena, coined as which after Hira Ratan Menak. It says a NASA doctor or team of medical doctors at the University of Pennsylvania observed Hira 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 100 days and confirmed that he was indeed able to survive largely on light. All right, small amounts of buttermilk or water. It may be done within an hour after sunrise or before sunset to avoid damage to the eyes. UVA rays are the highest during midday. So morning and evening sun is best for vitamin D synthesis and avoidance of cancer causing free radical. All right. So this vitamin D, all right, is actually vitamin D3, right, to my synthesis. All right. But you can also take internally, we recommend between 60,000 to 100,000. All right. Now, says second, you must be barefooted in contact with the actual earth. Finally, you must begin with only 10 seconds of the first day, increasing by 10 seconds intervals each day you practice. Following these rules, makes the practice safe. During your first 3 months of practice, the sunlight is moving towards the eyes in charge of the hypothalamus tract, rear of the retina, which leads to the brain. The brain then over time becomes active by the energy supply being released by the sun, received by the sun. By the end of 3 months, the gazing time will have increased to 15 minutes per day. Bad qualities like mental tension, worry, anger, fear, jealousy, lust are said to disappear. And what is replaced is certain confidence, ability to easily solve your problems, spiritual knowing, the senses more purely the heart of the issue. Following these rules make the practice safe. During your first 3 months of practice, the sun's energy is moving towards the eyes and charging the hypothalamus tract, rear of the retina, which leads to the brain. The brain then over time becomes active by the energy supplied by receiving, right, by the sun. By the end of 3 months, the gazing time will have increased 15 minutes per day. Bad qualities like mental tension, worry, stress, anger, fear, jealousy, lust, as said, to disappear. And by replaced by certain confidence, the ability to easily solve your problems and the spiritual knowing, the sense more purely at the heart of the matter. All right, so now it's recommended that during a 3-4 months period that you are auto-suggesting to see your body already healed of any perceived weakness or disease. At 3 to 6 months of stargazing, the study shows that the physical disease start to disappear. Sun gazing 30 minutes per day at the color of the sun will reach to the brain. Right, color therapists attribute this healing of certain colors to flooding the body and brain with a particular color that is lacking, depending upon the right. For example, in liver disease, the color green is beneficial. Kidneys is for red, All right. The kidneys need red and the heart yellow. Right. You see here the liver disease, the color green is deficient. So all of the organs and all of the systems are said to respond to different colors of the rainbow, which is why it is also recommended to eat a diet rich in the various colors. After 6 months, the energy stored from the techniques is no longer being used for repairing the body or the mind, and can now move on into supporting you in gaining more superhuman abilities. Right, after 9 months of practice, you lose the need of food and need only walk barefooted on the earth for 45 minutes a day, 6 days in a row to activate the pineal gland. Science say that each toe is connected to a specific gland, and by walking barefooted, all right, on the earth, you activate these glands. The big toe is thought to all right. So we know that in reflexology, acupressure, or acupuncture, that your ears, your hands, your feet, all of that is nothing more than a little detail of what is taking place within the human anatomy. Your fingernails shows the picture. Okay, your toes, your feet. Right. So the big toe is thought to be aligned with the pineal gland, the second toe with the pituitary gland, then the hypothalamus, the thalamus, and finally the pinky toe correlates to the amygdala. Okay. Now, I just had to give you time to soak that in. Study reflexology a little bit further so you can see the correlations. Right. A good book I recommend is Dr. Paul Gauss's book, The Eyes of Forever Young. Also, the complete textbook of holistic self-diagnosis by Dr. Layla Africa. All right. Because irisology can also correlate to these sciences. All right. So now walking barefoot with the sun now falling on top of your head, practitioners claim to create a sort of super magnetic field and around your body that recharges you and your brain much more thoroughly. All right. You got masters that this has happened with. Right. Simon Kabongo, Simeon Toko, all right, even Lee Ching Yung, who lived to be 256 years old. He was a herbalist, a martial artist, right? Allegedly, he had over 200 descendants during his lifespan, surviving 23 wives. All right. The Chinese government records in 1827 congratulating Li Chengyun on his 50th birthday. Further documents later congratulate him on his 200th birthday, 1877. Wikipedia 2013, and then Li Chengyun died on the 6th of May in 1933. he told his students that he had completed all his tasks in his life, in his lifetime, and that he was now ready to come home or go home. Okay, so how did he do it? Well, it's reported that he lived off a diet of herbs, rice wine, including linseed, goji berries, wild ginseng, hoshiwu, with foti, water and other herbs. One of his disciples, the Tai Chi Chuan master Dalu, told of Master Li's story. At 130 years old, Master Li encountered an older hermit, over 500 years old, in the mountains, who taught him Bakwazang and a set of Qigong with breathing instruction, movements, training, coordinating with specific sounds and dietary recommendations. Dalu reported that his master said that his longevity is due to the fact that I practice the exercises every day, regularly, correctly, and with sincerity for 120 years. Okay, now I have his book also, a book that was written on him. You definitely want to get that book. Let me see if I have it, where I got it at. All right. Let me see here. Let's get that right quick. I think I got that joint upstairs. But check that book out. It goes into the exercises that he actually practiced. All right. And you can begin to start practicing those exercises too. All right. So the Kundalini awakens the brain as the Kundalini energy raises through the Sushumna. What is the Sushumna? The Sushumna is the hollow area in the spine that goes up through the 33 vertebrae, in which that allows for the Kundalini to travel up through there, going through the 7 or the 6 particular spinal chakras to enter into the brain. The energy flows, all right, from the RAS and thalamus to the frontal cortex and awakens dormant, underactive parts of the brain, especially in the frontal lobes. The whole brain now begins to pulse as a unit, generating coherent, high amplitude brain waves within all frequency bands. Maximum altitude will usually be in the alpha band. However, fast EEG's activity in the beta and gamma waves will be strongly increased in the frontal area. And of course, RAS is the reptilian portion of the brain. All right. The human brain has an estimate storage capacity of 256 exabytes or 256 gigabytes. This is the equivalent of 1.2 billion average PCs, hard drives, enough CDs to make a stack which could reach beyond the moon and 15 libraries for every person on the planet. Okay, so the ancient Egyptian shows how the Kundalini awakens the brain, because this area here in which that is being shown to you is the brain itself. All right. Upside down is actually just showing you the area in the brain. Like it looks like the predator. But here it symbolizes the 12 pericranial nerves in the brain. All right, so we went over the 12 areas in the brain that circles the pineal gland. You have the optic nerve, the optician nerve, the oculomotor nerve, the trochlear nerve, the olfactory nerve, all right, the hypoglossal nerve, the vagus nerve, the accessory nerve, right, the facial nerve, the trigeminal nerve, the glossophrygeal nerve, and the vesicular blue locochlear nerve. All right, here it is. Shows you equivalent to the ancient Egyptians. That's how they that's what they based a lot of their statues is based on the human anatomy. All right, those 12 pericranial nerves symbolizing nothing more than the 12 disciples and Jesus. So 12 pericranial nerves around the pineal gland. He's talking about like the Last Supper. Okay. Like I said, it's called, but this is symbolic too, Jesus in the upper room. This is the upper room prayer meeting. Acts 1, 12 through 14. Then they returned to Jerusalem from the mount called Olivet, which is near Jerusalem, a Sabbath day journey. And when they had entered, they went up into the upper room where they were saying Peter, James, John, Andrew, Philip, Thomas, Bartholomew, Matthew, John, son of Alphaeus, and Simon the Zealot, and Judas, the son of James. They all continue as one according to prayer and supplication with the women and Mary, the mother of Jesus, and his brothers. See, he had brothers. So Mary wasn't a virgin because she had children before Jesus. So stop with that. This is the breath technique in which it activates the 12 pericranial nerves. Is the alternating nostril breath technique called anuloma, loma, viloma, pranayama. All right, so you would breathe in for a count of 4, close your right nostril, then hold both nostrils closed for 16, then breathe out your right nostril halfway for a count of 8, and then reverse back and forth. And this is Grandmaster Sunyata says, Swati, his book, June and the Lotus, The Tantric Path to Higher Consciousness. All right, so the Tantric Path to Higher Consciousness around the pineal gland are 12 pairs cranial nerves. They are symbolic to Jesus and his disciples at the Last Supper, King Arthur and his 12 knights at the Round Table, etc. Right. Rudolf Steiner, founder of the Anthroposophical Society, states that the zodiacal nature is cosmically reflected in the human brain in the multifarious ways. All right, this is what we talk about right here is in the brain. All right. So anoma viloma, what it does is helpful for the heart, high blood pressure, heart blockage, arthritis, cartilage, bent ligaments, spinal fluid reduction, Parkinson's, paralyzed, neuro-related depression. All right, that's migraine, pain, asthma, sinus, allergy. All right. That also means that you would develop what's called not just gifts, but higher sensory perception. ESP, extrasensory perception, is the awareness of information about the event external to the psyche that we are not gained through the senses. And all right, deductible from previous experience, often used to describe clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, intuition, clairgustance, precognition, future telling. All right. All right. So Dr. Frank Barr, he says neuromelanin may join forces with the glial cells, formerly seen as only the glue of the nervous system, to form a subtly triggering matrix of mental organization that is the mind's eye. Exactly. This is your pineal gland. This is your pineal gland on fluoride. All right. So Dr. Frank Barr goes on further. This, of course, this is him right here. It says melanin is shaped and structured by light. These molecular melanin combinations eat light. So remember, melanin eats light. Okay. This book in particular right here, Dark Light Consciousness. Melanin serpent power is a luminous matrix of reality. Right? Goes into a lot of what I'm talking about. Right? So we talked about the upper dantian is in the brain, the crystal room, third ventricle. And when it is full of energy, the capacity of the brain increases. We store our spiritual intelligence and the mind here. All the dantians have both yin yang within them. In nature, the yin and the yang are present in all things. Day, yang, turns into the sunset, which turns into night, yin. It is very important to the feeling quality of the yin within yang and yang within yin. One quality does not exist without the other. They are inseparable qualities of the same force. All right, the heart center dantian between the two nipples is in the middle dantian. It is associated with the fire element. Yet within fire, there is always water. The original spirit Shin is stored here. All right, then you have the lower dantian. The navel is like a empty universe or ocean. We want to fill a universe of energy with the lower dantian. Within this universe or ocean, there is a fire, like a volcano under the ocean, fire underwater. right? That the anoma viloma, which is the breath technique that we talked about, activates the pineal and various autonomic nervous system. All right, so these melanin or molecular melanin combinations eat light in order to maintain, expand, and evolve matter. The more highly evolved the species, the more complex its biological capacity to use light. He further states that the pineal gland is rich in neuromelanin and is a phase timing information processing interface molecule, which is a phototransducer. The pineal gland is strongly related to light in the body. Built-in light meter responds to light levels by producing melatonin, which determines circadian and metabolic rhythms known as the third eye, and links next to the crown chakra, the Sahasrara, first eye on the top of the head. And it's believed that the melanin and its brain counterpart, neuromelanin, is the key link between the mind and the brain. So this is why we talk about awakening the mind, hence via the brain. The pineal, hypothalamus, thalamus, and the pituitary glands comprises what is known as the third eye, spiritual eye. They are the focal points called the sacred pyramids of the brain. All right. The pineal gland helps us to overcome death by taking in external forces, hence, as in Qigong and Tai Chi practice, and combining them with the sexual energy and the original force to form an immortal body called the golden dragon body. All right. The pineal gland is the actual eye that has 144,000 magnetic crystal, quartz, diamonds, sand-like particles on it. The third eye also oscillates at 144 hertz. The ancients taught that there were 144 chakras. The crown chakra is said to be 10 times, 1,000 times more powerful than the lower 6 chakras. All right, so when you add up the lower 6, you get 4 plus 6 plus 10 plus 12 plus 16 plus 96. Then you times 144 times 1,000. And of course, 144,000. All right. So, hence, when you relieve yourself from karmic debt, self-judgment, you will emit the highest frequency of light and you will no longer have to return to this plane of form. Hence the development of the light body or Makaba. The all-seeing eye is the third eye or the spiritual eye. The gland is located within the center of the brain called the pineal gland. This gland is oftentimes referred to as the seat of the soul and will remain dormant until the soul reaches a certain vibratorial spiritual level. Yeah, until the Kundalini raises the soul, the seed that is laid within the center of the body. All right. There's a seed in the solar plexus area that when the Kundalini raises up, it must take that seed along with it into the brain area. Okay. Once this is obtained, the gland is activated by light of the higher self, signaling the divine energies from the Kundalini, root chakra to raise, activating heart chakra system, the physical being. All right, so right here is that once this is obtained, the gland is activated by the light of the higher self, signaling the divine energies from the root chakra, Kundalini, to rise, activating the human chakra system. Hence, lighting up your body like a damn Christmas tree. All right. The physical being and the spiritual being becomes one. Hence, the lower self and the higher self becomes only one self. Obtain a state of enlightenment where the soul is able to perceive the higher dimensions, the caduceus, the medical symbol for health. All right. I'm not going to spend too much time on Kundalini practice. All right. All right. It says right here, I'm going to come down for Kundalini starts at the base, lower end of the spinal column, proceeded along the spinal moral passages through other sections thereof, responsible for sympathetic ganglion being occupied by violent shock or rush sensation. All right. When it reaches the corneum, the pineal, it passes outward through the Brahmanandra. The three currents then form a cross in the brain. Hence, that Jesus died on the cross. Because once your lower self is dead, your higher self is able to work itself. All right. So what we find out is that the Kundalini is 6,000 degrees. When we find that the sun surface is 6,000 degrees, the fact that the outermost region of the sun atmosphere is at millions of degrees, 2 millions, while the temperature at the underlying photosphere is only 6,000 degrees, is quite non-intuitive. One would have expected a gradual cooling, all right? But anyway, Earth core temperatures are hellish 6,000 degrees Celsius. So the sun surface is 6,000 degrees. The Earth core is 6,000 degrees, meaning that the Kundalini inside of you must also be 6,000 degrees. All right. All right. This is for those that want to be able to transform their body into light. The human body of light, the immortal body of light, both by Dr. Gibson, Mitchell Earl Gibson. The hidden reality of solar light. My investigation into the hidden nature of the human light body led to a strange and intriguing aspects of our reality. There is a hidden aspect to the light of the sun. Mystical and spiritual traditions have nearly every culture have linked the sun to man's higher evolution. And cultures as diverse as the scenes, the Mayans, Aztecs, Buddhists, Hindus, Oceanic, right, and Native Americans are linking the power of the sun to man's higher nature. According to these ancient traditions, the hidden nature of sunlight holds an important to the key to human evolution. In this chapter, we'll summarize the major finds. All right. But here is Pran Mantra, life force. It awakens and increases self-confidence. This mantra should add to any other commitment. All right. It increases body vitality. All right. Just chanting and doing your hand positions like this in front of your gun zone. It increases the body vitality and provides substance when derived of life support and food and water. This increases the light of the eye. Right? As you see, that hand position increases the light of the eyes, the pupils of the eyes when they get locked. In other words, it magnifies. Right? So the light body is known that you have Luciferin, oxyluciferin, and Luciferin light. Luciferin is a name for the light emitting pigment found in organisms capable of bioluminescence. All right, so hopefully y'all can see this clear enough. I was trying to make it clear. It's about as clear as I can get it, y'all. But luciferin is a genetic term for light-emitting pigment found in organisms capable of bioluminescence, like fireflies, deep-sea fish, and microbes. It was named after the Roman god of light, Lucifer. The luciferin now is pigment. All right, so luciferin is oxidized in the presence of the enzymes lucerase, the luciferase, to produce luciferin and energy in the energy of light. So the difference between humans and fireflies, because fireflies is one of the bioluminescent insects, but this is very interesting because we know that heat escapes from the top of the head, as you see here. All right. Looks like Daryl Strawberry, but anyway, the heat is leaving from the top of the head. Right. In the firefly, it contains 90% of the heat in the body, which is transferred into light in the body, and only 10% of the heat escapes from the body. Just the opposite. The name of this transference substance is called luciferin. It's the same substance that allow bioluminescent deep sea fish and microbes to light up. All right. Notice the golden dragon. Notice the dragon. And it is over top of his head. That is symbolic to the enlightenment. All right. Even as sperm, we had light in the head area. All right, get the science on the golden dragon body as you see it to the left. And then as you grow and grow, your ethereal body establishes itself. You work off what is known as the Kabbalah, the Merkaba or Merkaba. Right. So I'm going out. That's the science that we have for the night. All right. Get the book, The Human Body of Light by Mitchell Gibson, MD. All right. Earth is a prison planet, and we are all captives here. At least that's what is thought of. By developing your light body, you can develop into an even greater body. All right. But right here, let's look at it. The body then ascends into the air. It says right here, Don Juan Nagal. He witnessed the transformation of an older man's body into a body of pure light. This body then ascended to the air, where he was joined by a number of similar light bodies that hovered above. The being then drifted away towards the neighboring hills and disappeared through an opening in space itself. In other words, a wormhole in which that takes you from this dimension into the next. Right? That's what's going on. Right? And a good example of that is the fact of the macabre. Right? With the macabre. Cream Mutwa also talked about this, the signs of the macabre. All right? In Hebrew, the word macabre, chariot, derived from the root RKB within meaning to ride, is used in Ezekiel 1 through 4 through 26, referred to as the throne chariot of God, the four-winged vehicle driven by the four kayat living creatures. Kayat. All right. So you are energy transcending into light and power. I'm awakened in my true self, the light of Ra. Like Mer means equals light, Ka, spirit, Ba, soul. All right. If it's going to be for the body, then it would be Kat. The configuration of the star tetrahedron is formed within the first 8 cells of life. And those same 8 cells remain fixed at the base of the spine throughout your entire life. So all 76 trillion of your cells changes throughout 7 years. However, those 8 never changes. The star tetrahedron also models the energetic body of the human being. The blending of the earth, the tetrahedron is ubiquitous throughout nature because of the 64 tetrahedron grids is the structure of the vacuum. See, that's the vacuum that give you access to that wormhole or portal to blink you from this world into the next. All right. All right. So you get the book, The Ancient Secrets of the Flower of Life by Drevalo Melchizedek. All right, he goes in on the 18 breath technique. He used to teach us the 24 and the 28 breath technique. Right, he was one of my teachers as I was initiated into the Flower of Life mysteries as one of the Melchizedeks. All right, so that's it for tonight. Hopefully y'all got something from it. You know, I had some pauses up in here because I'm trying to look for books and different other things here before we can correlate this information, but sometimes that ain't needed. We just get through it the best way we can. All right, so continue now for days, weeks, months, years to come. We're moving towards the most cherished goals of health, wealth, knowledge of ourselves, better economic conditions for contentment. All right. Every action, enterprise, and endeavor in which we wish to be involved is bringing increasing rewards.